Welcome to Varsity House Podcast. I'm your host, Shaun Crawford, former Notre Dame captain and NFL player. On this episode, we bring in co-host Elliot Montanez. And since we're in Chicago, we had to grab one of the legends who knows all about Chicago sports. And from 670 to Score, Gabe Ramirez. Gabe, appreciate you joining us today.
We had to bust out the whiteboard because he has a really strong stance on Baker Mayfield. Where would you rank Baker Mayfield, 1 through 32? Where would you put him at?
I think Baker Mayfield got to be up there, right? I mean, only because of we know how difficult it is to play the quarterback position in the NFL, right? And so to do it on multiple teams, right? He did ball out last year on the Rams when he came there, not knowing the system, not knowing anything, got them a victory, which is difficult to do. And then, going to Tampa, taking over for Tom Brady. That's not an easy task, right? And to not only come in there and hold down the fort, but to make Tampa fall in love with you. Like, they love Baker Mayfield out there because of what he did last season. So, I mean, got into the playoffs, put up some really good numbers, on a cheap deal and earned every penny of that big contract that he got. So I would say top 15 for sure. And it's debatable on where you want to put him between 10 and 15. I think when a lot of people, I think this is an issue with the quarterback position and the debate that goes on often, people don't understand how quickly that list dries up. Right, like you can say he's 20th, but you're gonna have a difficult time telling me the 19 other quarterbacks that are better than Baker Mayfield. And then when you actually do that, but you guys did the work.
We did, yeah.
You guys had it,
and it was pretty challenging.
What was the most controversial name that was ahead of Baker Mayfield? There had to have been somebody where you guys were like, nah, hell nah.
Our first top 10 order is, some of them are correct, but we were just saying all right, these are
right without a doubt.
Yeah. But right when we got around 18, Jordan Love was probably one of them too. We were is he better than? Because he had a hell of a year.
Of course he's better. Yes, both those guys are in the top 15. Where did you guys have Justin Fields? That's where we're starting this whole conversation.
That's how the conversation even got started. That's how it got started.
Okay. I see what we got here.
Ooh, okay. So I think the big one was Geno,
Deshaun, Russ,
yeah,
J Love.
Yeah, that was that 16 through 20 was all right, because I think.
What are we basing this off of? Is this off last year? Is this off of just we're playing
year.
Madden?
No, last year's
performance.
We're not going career last year.
Yeah. Then how can Aaron Rodgers be 7th, guys?
Was this? I mean.
That's why I asked what the metrics were. That's all I was saying.
All right.
Hey, you guys want me to come in and be the guy? I'll be the guy. Hold on.
I think one drive and he was better than some.
All right, maybe let's go last couple of years. Let's go
okay.
Who you would have on your team, right?
Yeah.
Matt Stafford we have a little bit high too.
Yeah, as you should. You win a Super Bowl, you got to be, you got to give him his flowers. Justin Herbert depends on what you value, right? Statistics or actually winning, right? Jared Goff, same thing. Consistency. Is it a product of his team? Is it simply him? Right? Are we crediting Amon-Ra St. Brown there? The offense. Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator. C.J. Stroud for sure. Right? He's there. Purdy, that's debatable depending on, again, same argument you could have for him. Trevor Lawrence, I'd probably have him a little further down. When you look at Tua's consistency is wild.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. You go against the Bears specifically. I think he started the game 15 for 15. And he does it all the time, right? So when you're talking about a guy like that with Tyreek Hill, I mean, I would have him up there. Kirk Cousins, same thing. A sneaky 4,000-yard thrower
every year.
I hate that Jordan Love's on the board, but you gotta say it. You know what I mean? Deshaun Watson, I'll skip past him. I'll skip past Russell Wilson. Geno Smith, you love what he's done over the last couple of seasons to resurrect his career. Fortunately, the Bears have his offensive coordinator now, so maybe he can do the same thing here. And then, Baker Mayfield. I mean, we've got all guys that are, really good, and should be there in that top 20. See what I did there? Top 20.
I like that.
Because 21 is Justin Fields.
Yeah, we stopped there. After that, we gave up. But
was anybody vying for Justin to be in the top 20?
No, I think
really. It was okay. Consensus.
It was pretty clear that he, we thought. I didn't think he was top 20. But the fact that we just started the list because I think he said Baker was around 20 to 25. Yeah. And I was just like, dude, it's so hard to be a good quarterback in the NFL. Yeah. There's Super Bowl quarterbacks for sure. There was were quarterbacks I think that can, get your team over that hump. But still to be even that good quarterback, Kirk Cousins just got $100 million guaranteed. There's not many quarterbacks that are out there doing what Kirk Cousins can do. And so that's kind of how the conversation and the list got started. And then bringing it back to Justin Fields, we were like, he was big on saying like Caleb could be that top 5 Super Bowl guy. He has the talent, he has the arm strength, the mechanics. I mean, the wow, all that stuff. Yeah, to where Fields could still make a run into that top 15 area, but is that going to get you ultimately the Super Bowl that every organization wants?
Yeah. Like, what's Fields' ceiling in your head? Because people say Lamar. But
I said that.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, a lot of people had remember when before the season began, a lot of people were putting money on Justin Fields to win the MVP. Mm-hmm. Remember that? That was a real big ticket in the betting world. And I get it. I think we in Chicago, we love our people. Yeah. And we have a high standard for them, and we want them to be great, just like those that have come before them, right? Whether it's Walter Payton, Brian Urlacher on the Bears, whether it's Michael Jordan on the Bulls, you know what I'm saying? Whatever the team is, we want to hold you to that standard. And when it comes to Justin Fields, I mean, he came in and he did the job, right? He ended up holding down the quarterback role, which is what we ultimately wanted in Chicago, right? Someone that can be a good quarterback, because we were tired of bad quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And he did that. But when you're looking at his ceiling, I myself can't see a situation where Justin Fields finds himself in the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, just because of, I don't want to bash Justin Fields, but when you're looking at what he does, that's not as good as the rest of the quarterbacks in the league, right? When you watch them. And I think what I try to tell a lot of people is that, we all watch football on Sundays. All of us. We all play football. We all, play games. And we watched enough, even with our naked eye, to see what is good and what isn't, right? And we can also see what is great. And that's why when we look at guys like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, we can say, wow, they're playing on a different level than everybody else. And I think that, Justin just unfortunately has those flaws there that won't allow him to do that. And I think that we as fans, sometimes we get blinded by our fandom, and we can't see that with Justin. That's what I think ends up happening.
Do you think that's us with Bears fans? Like, do you think the league views Justin differently than we do just because we root for the Bears?
Yeah, I mean, it goes to the same thing, right? I think the league understands it's tough, right? In the present, people could easily just say it's a cop out. It's an easy way out to say, oh, look, nobody wanted to give up a 3rd round pick for Justin, so that means, he's trash. Mm-hmm. That's not the case. It's just maybe teams where they're at in their growth, and they didn't know Justin Fields was going to become available out of nowhere. They didn't know the Bears were going to get the number 1 pick, and all of a sudden he's there. And we all have businesses, we have lives. You got to make smart business decisions. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to make your team better, and you have a guy who can be as productive as a Justin Fields but costs a 5th of what he would, then why would you go that route, in the present, and especially when you don't need to press. So I don't know. I think Justin Fields is valuable. I wouldn't trade him for a 5th round pick. I could just keep him. Yeah. But it's going to be interesting. I think those things will change, come draft time and when teams get a bit more desperate.
With that in mind, we talked about this yesterday. Because I also don't want to trade Justin for a 4th round pick, 5th round pick. He's more valuable than that, right? But I was asking Shaun for context. Shaun played at Notre Dame. He played for the Raiders for a little bit. Like, you think if you draft Caleb and keep Justin, that's just instantly going to divide the locker room? Because all the Bears players already rock with Justin, as they should, right? And then bringing in Caleb, you don't think that's going to create like an awkward dynamic?
It's interesting. I on my show yesterday on the Score, I had 9-year NFL vet Clay Harbor play for the Eagles, Patriots, and such. And we were having the same discussion. And he was the one that brought it up. And he was like, Gabe, you don't understand. You bring somebody in there. And he talked about, and I would love to hear your take on this as well, Shaun. He talked about, that it starts with a crack. And then it gets bigger, right? What initially is just like a damn, that was my guy. And now they're both here. And then it's like, now I'm not paying attention to the coaches. And now I'm not listening to the game. And he said it was snowballing into that eventually. That was his concern. I countered that. And I was like, all we hear about the NFL is that it's a business, right? And I said, Clay, every year you were in the league, they were on your ass about, having another tight end behind you or looking to fill that, upgrade that position every year. I was like, so why? Like, I get the nature of feeling a certain type of way about it, but when you look at the NFL and the league on a macro level, like, that's just what happens. So to me, I try to look at it through that lens, but I can't look at it through the lens of a player. So that's why I'm interested. And you, Shaun, what do you think? Do you think that is something that would divide the locker room immediately?
I was telling him, I think because we looked at it at 2 scenarios where if Justin came, or if Caleb got drafted, then Caleb would be number 1, and then they would compete. Ultimately, it goes to Caleb, and then maybe the locker room gets split like that because DJ Moore has come on record saying he loves Fields and they have a great relationship and things like that. But all the other scenario is you draft Caleb and he sits maybe at the start of the season, halfway through the season, however long it may take, but he sits that year, and then you promote him into that starting role the next year, similar to like Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. So I think there's two scenarios, and I think if you go with the second scenario where you keep Justin Fields as the starter until he proves that he shouldn't be the starter, I think you keep the locker room together longer. I think it still might be a divide, but I think at least when the season's starting through camp, through the tough times, you keep the locker room together knowing that Justin Fields is our guy. When, everyone understands it's a business, so you got to prepare for the long term. So if you got a potential top 5 quarterback with, talent like Caleb, then you can't pass up on him, especially with the work that they're doing in free agency right now. So I think they got we were talking about the secondary last year. They got a good secondary. They got Sweat last year, rushing the passer. Just brought in a running back over, and then the receiver room I think is getting better, and also they got a backup tight end, right?
Yep, Gerald Everett.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think I like the pieces around it, like defense and then offense as well. So in this draft, if it was like, we need to clear another player, then maybe you can explore other options. But if there's Caleb there and the team around the quarterback seems like it's good, then you have to take him. You can't pass up on him. And then, so that's, but I wanted to compare it to like my time at Notre Dame. So I came in with a quarterback named Brandon Wimbush. He was I want to say 4-star or 5-star, but he was an Elite 11 quarterback, top quarterback, and was like primed to start. And then we had a backup quarterback named Ian Book, and a year younger, but maybe not as like highly recruited or anything like that, but different strengths. Brandon was probably a better runner, less of a passer than Ian, and vice versa. And so we were, I want to say like 3-0 or 4-0, and it came to a point where the coaches made a decision that we got to go with Ian because they think he can take us further down the road. And we ended up going to the playoffs that year. We were undefeated that year. We ended up losing the playoffs, but do I think we could have went undefeated with Brandon? I'm sure we could have.
Right.
He was just as talented, just not as great as a passer. Or maybe the offense is limited with Brandon, or it's not necessarily limited, but it's different with Brandon. But we went to the playoffs with Ian, and like I was great friends. I was roommates with Brandon, and like I didn't necessarily have a relationship with Ian. But then once he became the quarterback, I was like, all right, like I want to win games.
I rock with you.
Yeah, like
immediately.
I want to win games.
Right.
I want to, I want to go as far as we can. So it's like, all right, like I'm believing in you and I got faith in you. But I think the relationship that you could have with a player or a teammate, I think it can be separated because at the end of the day, like these players, their time in the NFL is limited, and you want to make the most out of it that you can. And so I think obviously if you're winning games, your career is probably going to be longer. If you're on a winning team, winning organization, your career is probably going to be longer. Receivers, like, yeah, you might be best friends with Justin Fields, but if that ball is coming out a little different, or he's throwing it in different windows and you're getting your stats better and things like that, all those things matter. And so I think they're grown enough, and like you realize the big picture is that like we want to win games, we want to get to the playoffs, those playoff bonuses. Chicago hasn't seen those in a very long time, and so just playoff football. Like I think that makes and breaks organizations, and teams are fighting to get there. You see what the Lions did. They had a huge drought of the playoffs and even winning a playoffs game. And then now, like, you could just see the trajectory of that organization. And it's there's real positive vibes in Detroit.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, when you're talking about, the two guys coming in the beginning, right? Because I like to think, because I do like that notion, right? Because I actually, we should talk about what we want to have happen with this first pick, because you guys both want Caleb Williams. I actually want something different.
Okay.
We'll talk
I don't
about that
want
in a
Caleb
sec.
Williams.
Oh, okay.
He's a Browns
Well, you're a Browns fan.
Yeah.
For the Bears. For the Bears is what I was saying. For the Bears. So we'll go over that in a second. But when you're talking about Justin Fields, again, going back to the 2 quarterback scenario going into training camp, Justin Fields didn't have the luxury of taking all those training camp reps with the first team, right? When he first got here, it was Andy Dalton that was doing that. And a lot of people feel like that was detrimental to his growth in year 1. And so, I too feel as though whoever comes in, and I'll tell you my other guy in a second, that they should be I think Justin Fields should be starting week 1 for the Bears. Why? It's a cheap contract. You still don't know. You still have, if it's like if you're dating a girl and you don't want to break up with her yet, right? You're like, I'm gonna see this out a couple more months just to see if she's really or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that's what it is with Justin, because you don't want to break up with her too soon and be like, damn, look at her. She's baddie. You know what I'm saying? So I think Justin Fields starts week 1. You still give him the opportunity to, because he still has trade value mid-season. And Ryan Poles each year as the GM of the Chicago Bears has made a trade at the deadline. So it's not something that he's new to, right? He's done that. So why not let that be the case with Justin Fields if he were to be there? But again, I think if Caleb Williams comes in, I wonder if that'll be the scenario where he doesn't get those training camp reps. To your point, Justin Fields proves he shouldn't be the starter. And then all of a sudden there's this cycle again where people are like, oh, the Bears get it wrong all the time. They don't necessarily, kind of do it. So, but the guy who I think should be sitting behind Justin Fields is Drake Maye.
Really?
But it's Drake Maye in picks, right?
Yeah.
And this is where one of my good friends, Mark Grody, covers the Bears on a weekly basis. He told me at the beginning of the season, like, Gabe, it's okay to be greedy. Mm-hmm. Be greedy. And I'm like, okay, so now we've gotten to this point where the Bears have the first pick. And then I say to myself, okay, well, if you're telling me, let's just say, Caleb Williams is Patrick Mahomes and Drake Maye is Josh Herbert, right? If you're telling me that, and I get to have Josh Herbert and picks, and I get to have Josh Herbert sit in the event that Justin Fields, can be something, or again, like you said, proves that he isn't something. But now I've gotten picks as a result of it. Now I've gotten another good quarterback who is a fail-safe. I don't have to wait 2 years to then readjust my team and figure out what's going on or be in emergency mode. So to me, that's what I would love to do for the Chicago Bears. But a lot of people who I've talked to, a lot of my cohorts at the Score or at radio station, or at publications, they've said, to your point, you can't have two guys in the locker room at the same time. Yeah. And that's a number one rebuttal that they have to me. But in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm running a business. I don't care.
Yeah.
I want picks. I want a really good quarterback as a backup. And I want Justin Fields because you know what? He is dynamic. And maybe if I hook him up with some things, maybe he could figure it out when he gets, maybe. And if not, so be it. And I got Drake Maye as a fail-safe. That's my little.
What's your take? I know you had a take on Drake Maye. So
yeah, okay. I like that thought. I love a trade, right? Like what Ryan Poles did last year when he traded back and got DJ Moore, got the pick that ended up being this first overall pick. I love shit like that. So that's cool with me. Trading back with Washington, that one pick, if they offered, pick 36, pick 40, and a first next year, and then you can get Drake Maye, I like something like that. Here's my thing with Drake Maye, though, is 5 years ago, the Bears drafted a quarterback from North Carolina
can't
who didn't have, but you
can't draft the helmet, though. You can't draft the helmet.
But like Drake Maye hasn't accomplished, I'd say, even half of what Caleb Williams has.
What? Do you know Drake Maye's stats? I got to pull these up.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up right now.
Drake Maye is nice.
He is, man.
Drake Maye's stats are
I just don't
nice.
Know if he's that. You think he's Justin Herbert?
I know this. Here's my thing. So 2 years ago, I did a college gambling show on the BetQL network, 38 states. Me and a guy named Pete Futek, college football expert from College Football News. He was the one that told me about Caleb Williams. He's like, yo, this year I'm a USC fan. Lincoln Riley's there. This guy got this guy named Caleb Williams. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Fell in love with the Pac-12. Fell in love with the high-scoring nature of it. I'm in Chicago, 2 hours late. I love late night football. So I love Michael Penix Jr. as well. But in doing so, every week he's coming in preaching Caleb Williams 2 years ago. And every week I'm just seeing this kid pop up on my screen, and it's Drake Maye. 2 years ago, not last year, 2 years ago. Yeah. And then every week, now I'm paying attention to him every week. Now I'm watching his games. Now I'm like, wow, this kid is really good. Before Caleb Williams mania, before number one, and then all of a sudden when it came Heisman time, I remember Caleb Williams was the front runner, and I was just thinking to myself, I think Drake Maye's gonna win this thing. Just me personally thinking that. And then when this year came, and everyone was like, Caleb Williams, and I brought Pete Futek on my show, and I was like, Pete, what's going on here? Because he's been doing this for decades. College football. He's like, Gabe, sometimes you realize in college football, idiots need things to write about. He's like, and they will latch onto something. And it is Caleb Williams right now. And he told me that at the beginning of the season when it was going crazy. Bears didn't have the number one pick yet. It wasn't, so for me, I just wanted to stay strong in my opinion of what I thought with my eyes when I saw them for the first time 2 years ago. And it was that I thought Drake Maye was very, very good. And again, I'm not saying I want Drake Maye over Caleb Williams. I want Drake Maye and those picks. Yep. Over Caleb Williams. That to me is what the important component there is.
I think if I want the Bears to trade down, though, I would like to trade down to New England and draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Like that's my ideal. You get all the picks. You get Marvin Harrison Jr. to team up with DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, and Cole Kmet and them now, and then you like fully commit to Justin Fields.
That's wild. Yeah. I actually think New England's going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. A lot of people think they're going to take Jaden Daniels, and I don't think they think that their organization, their team, the talent that they have on their squad is where it needs to be to take that young quarterback now. If you take Marvin Harrison Jr. this year, right? And let's say you end up in the bottom of the league, first, second, third pick, you get Shadur Sanders next year. Now you got Shadir Sanders and Marvin Harrison Jr. That sounds a lot better to me than Caleb Williams and the guys.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? So especially with the new coach, you got a new regime coming in. There's no pressure on you to be great immediately. So let me get a cornerstone like Marvin Harrison Jr., a Hall of Famer like they're saying. Let me get him and know that he's going to be on my team for the next 10 years. I'll get me a quarterback, whether it's via free agency or
they
in the
just
draft.
signed Jacoby Brissett, I want to say, yesterday.
Yeah, right.
Which I don't know if they'd rock with him as a starter, but
Depth. Because they just traded Mac Jones.
Right. That's a similar situation with Garrett Wilson. I mean, I know they drafted Sauce.
That's a great point.
They drafted Sauce before him earlier in the draft, but they still drafted Garrett Wilson early. And I don't. Who was the quarterback there?
Zach Wilson, right?
Was it Zach Wilson? Okay, so Zach Wilson was the quarterback, and he ended up going out there and winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, Garrett Wilson.
Right.
So that could be a situation.
Oh, wait. No, it wasn't Zach Wilson. He wouldn't have won that with him, would it? Would he have?
He was on the team for sure, but I feel he
So
got
was
replaced.
it like Flacco before that or Darnold?
Flacco was there at a point.
Was it Baker?
I think they were
No. So he had a number. Let's just say he had a number of quarterbacks, and still went out there and won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And then that next year they get Rodgers. Obviously, he got hurt, but like that's that situation you were talking about. That next year you can go out, maybe test free agency, or you could go out and get the draft a quarterback if you are at the bottom of the league. So I do like that option for the Patriots.
Because why give up draft capital to go number one and get Caleb? Because now you're giving up draft capital too, you know, to do that. So you're like, not you're screwing yourself in the short term just to get Caleb, but you have nothing around him. And we've seen with the Bears, with Carolina last year, that's not a recipe for success. To put your quarterback in that much of a situation where he's, with a talentless team, and you got Bryce Young throwing at 40-year-old Adam Thielen instead of a top-tier wide receiver. Hey, I like that trade they made, though, to go get Deontay Johnson from Pittsburgh, Carolina, to give Bryce Young somebody to throw to, man. They did some good stuff over there.
Yeah. Damn.
All right, so you want the Bears to trade down and
in my perfect sick world.
But, like, what do you think they're going to do?
What do I think they're going to do? I think Ryan Poles is very smart. But I also think he hasn't shown so far that he's willing to pull the trigger on a big move, right? Like the Montez Sweat second round, we saw him do that already for Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
Right. And let's not forget, Montez Sweat, he wasn't signed just yet, right? So it was a gamble, a little one, but a gamble nonetheless. But you haven't seen him do anything like trade up to go get somebody, or, you know what I'm saying? Like give up an asset and a player to go, like he hasn't made those moves. He's always trying to be calculated, which is where he's needed to be in the first couple of years with the Bears. So what do I think he's going to do at one? Honestly, I think Ryan Poles is just like us three. I think he's a smart guy, and I think he's like, you know what? I don't know because I haven't talked to Caleb Williams yet. And he's like, and just like you guys were like, just like when you were like, hey, you guys met before and we were cool. Yeah. That's what Ryan Poles wants to feel from Caleb Williams. Yeah. And if he doesn't, if he's tight for any reason, I really do think he'll be hesitant. And he'll want to talk to these other people in the room and be like, hey, did y'all feel what I felt in that room with him? You know? So I really think that he just genuinely does not know yet.
Yeah. I even saw rumors during the season where Caleb was going to ask for like equity in the team, or I don't know if it was just the Bears or if it was any team that took him number one. Was it any team?
It was his dad saying that, but the NFL had already passed a bylaw that had already passed that said that no player can play for their team and have ownership in it as well. So.
Yeah.
So but it was wild. I think there's a lot of rumors around Caleb. Right? A lot of people, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like a lot of people were trying to like throw some shade. Yeah, you know, because when you're the LeBron James of football, you're making $10 million as a college kid. People are hating on you, you know, especially when they're saying you're generational. You know, people. But didn't he look good at the podium at the combine? Yeah, talking to the people, just kind of
looks composed.
With all the weight of the world on your shoulders, all this drama that's you've been dealing with. You come out there and you're like, "What's up, guys?" That's the first thing he said. "What's up, guys?" It's like super confident.
The red flags that people have of Caleb Williams, do those bother you? Like people say, like, "Oh, you know, he paints his nails and he cried in the stands."
Bro, we're at Lyrical Lemonade. You gonna tell me there's not some 20-some-year-olds that paint their nails that walk into this building? Facts. You're gonna tell me there ain't some 20-some-year-olds that cry in this building?
Exactly.
Facts. Yeah. Especially if their mom was here. Come on, like you cannot. Like you got to be smarter than that. I think we were just talking about the second goal. A lot of people hold these guys to a different level of standards, which is understandable for certain things. But you still got to sit back and remember these are young kids. You played at Notre Dame. You know what? You know, like you get it. Your young kid is still like looking back on your time there. I'm sure you can still be like, damn, I was young.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And it was following, like the crying part is following the game.
A tough loss.
Loss.
The season's going down
the season wasn't that. Yeah, it wasn't expected or as expected as it was supposed to be. The paint and the nails thing, I think that's just the culture.
I think that's normal now.
Yeah, I think that's just around the culture you're in. He's from LA, California kid.
I hate that he painted Notre Dame on his nails. But as a fan,
that's pretty great. But you got to think like the UFC fans or USC fans loved it.
Yeah.
So
of course.
I mean, like he's going for his team. Like obviously, if only people who hate it are a few, maybe NFL execs and the Notre Dame fan base, and
Older
it was like,
folks,
then that's just a little piece, like head game. Because I don't know, you never know. It could be a head game that he's playing with the opposing DBs or the opposing
He did
coordinator.
Utah too. That same year.
So I mean, that's something that's little. But I now that you bring it up, man, I like that. I like that suggestion that you had. Trade back, get Drake Maye, because Drake, I feel like there was a point in time where people were talking about Drake Maye, but then it was just clouded by Caleb, and then it was clouded by the playoff run that Penix had.
Jaden
Daniels. I mean, he balled. And I even see some people now saying Jaden Daniels should be number one, but
that's a silly take, guys.
He's as old as Justin Fields. He's 24.
But I like that take because his name's not as popular, and I think I feel like the majority of the fan go off of names. Like, they may not know who Caleb Williams is, but like they see the buzz, they see the name. They might even see a magazine or a billboard with Caleb Williams' picture, and it's like, all right, we got to have him, like start this guy. When it's like you may not know that much about football. But Drake Maye, obviously, I think is a good talent, but his name isn't as popular, so I think that may keep a little, noise away from the facility, away from the organization. So, and like you said, if you miss and you got those picks, similar to the Patriots situation, like that's something that you could build off of going down the road, and bringing in another Ohio State guy with Justin could do the trick.
Could.
I kind of like the star power that Caleb Williams would bring to Chicago, though.
Or not Ohio State, but
if he ends up being that guy that they're saying he could be, like. The city of Chicago could use that as a sports figure. Like, who's the last superstar that was in the city? Like Derrick Rose, maybe?
Derrick Rose, nice. I mean, shit, now Simone Biles going to be here with the new signing of Jonathan Owens. She already tweeting out, going crazy. But yeah, I think star power is definitely something the Bears could use. I just think the narrative around the Bears as a whole needs to change. Around a lot of teams in Chicago, right? The White Sox, Bendito.
Oh, man.
But like around a lot of those teams, I think the Bears as well, right? Like getting the quarterback position right, winning, as you mentioned, Shaun, like that cures a lot and makes people feel good. Not only the players, but the city as a whole. And, it's just been so long since the Bears have had, 2 winning seasons in a row. And it's like, damn, who's going to bring it? So I think star power, yeah, but imagine like the legend of Caleb Williams if he comes in and gives us 10 dubs first 2 seasons. Because the team's good, right? The team is decent, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you come in and give the city 2 10s in a row, get out of here, bro. Okay, look, everybody's gonna be painting their nails.
Without a doubt.
I'm gonna be crying to my mom if we get that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, you could look at supporting cast because the Browns used to be in that situation where we now have made the playoffs a couple times recently, but you look at the supporting cast where
I mean, Joe Black. Nobody really thought you made the playoffs last year, but I hear what you're saying though.
But we made it with Baker as well, and and Baker actually won a playoff game. But I say that just because I'm talking about like the supporting cast, even in one of the hardest divisions in football, and going out there with a great supporting cast, like I think the Bears are building to, gives the lesser quarterback an opportunity to make plays. And I think the Bears last year were building towards, the better surrounding cast. And I think this year, like at the start of, depending on what they do in the draft, obviously, but at the start of training camp, I think they'll be in a way better position than they were last year. And just regardless of who the quarterback is, just the supporting cast. And then you talk about Flacco going in there. I forget we had another quarterback play as well, but
before Flacco,
DTR.
DTR.
DTR played, but it was another.
Yeah, it was one more too in there.
Dang,
because he leapfrogged both of them.
He was a vet. But I think he went in there and won a game. And I'm just saying that, like, once you get that supporting cast and you're able to get, the pass rushers, some receivers, some solid receivers, the running game down, I just think, like, the organization could just definitely, just use that as momentum and turn around from there. But that's my opinion. That's why I think, like, Fields could be the guy. And I was also talking to him last year. I was like, when Fields first got in, like, I don't remember who the OC was for the Bears, but I compared it kind of to Lamar. Like Lamar didn't have that great of a rookie season, and they got rid of the OC, and then they brought in Greg Roman and orchestrated the offense around him. Got the tight ends, receivers were never like the superstar receivers, but built the offense strictly around Lamar and always had a great defense. Where I was like, if I wish Justin Fields had that opportunity, because even they had some Flacco Lamar drama, and they went with. They obviously got Flacco out of there, and they went with Lamar, to where it's like this situation was different. They went with Dalton. Fields sat a little bit, but then even when Fields got in that role, I don't think they utilized his strengths. Like Lamar early, his strength was definitely running the ball, making less decisions in the passing game, to where like now he's more visual in the passing game. And I think that early start, that approach, even this year, like that approach could just help, I think, Justin Fields a ton. Yeah,
it was tough, right? When Justin first got in the league, you got Matt Nagy as his coach, who was essentially the offensive coordinator calling the plays. And I think that, I tell people this all the time, and it was against your Cleveland Browns, Justin Fields' first game. I think that game proved more about Matt Nagy being right than it proved about Matt Nagy being wrong, right? Where Justin Fields was not ready for that moment. And that's why he wanted to start Andy Dalton. And his plan was to have Andy Dalton start the entire season, so Justin Fields could learn underneath him. So, everybody here in Chicago was clamoring for Justin Fields to get, especially because Andy got hurt, and it was just like, yo, get the kid in there. And it was like, that wasn't the case. But then, to the second part of your point, remember, Justin wasn't this dynamic running quarterback in college. So when you're talking about using his skill set and the best of his abilities, you're thinking, all right, I'm trying to get his ass to throw the ball correctly, like he was doing to your guy Garrett Wilson, right? Chris Olave, monsters in the league. But I don't know. I mean, you played in the league. Like, was there a moment where something happened to you where you had to decide, I'm with the shits right now or I'm not? Because I feel like that's what happened with Justin, where like that day might have got the best of him, or those first couple of games might have got the best of him. And then after that, he just wasn't with the shits and like was just, you know what I mean? Like deer in the headlight kind of situation.
Yeah, I think I've tried room with Ian Book, and he told me like they call it like getting the yips. It's like a baseball term too. Yeah. I think he told me that's a real thing, like to where, the spin of the ball is just not the same. You might start seeing people that aren't there. I don't know.
I believe it.
But that, yeah.
6'5" gladiators coming at you in a half a second. Yeah, I get it. I feel that way too.
Yeah, but I mean, I can't speak from a quarterback, experience, but definitely if you start to have a couple bad games and you start to maybe believe that you're not what you thought you were, but we hope that's not the case, because then he's doomed now.
Right. I just think when I talk about Justin Fields on my show, it's always that he's a top 13 to 17 quarterback in my mind. Right. I know we got that up there from the last couple of years, but when you're looking at what he's done in the present and who he is, I think he's a top 13 to 17 pick where you want him to be. But I think that's where he's at. I think that's what he is. And so he's good. If the Bears didn't have the number 1 pick, if it was just the number 9, no one would be tripping right now. Mm-hmm. You'd be like, are we going to get Brock Bowers, or are we going to get, are we going to trade up to get Rome Odunze? Like, what are you going to do there? No one will be tripping. We're trying to make the Bears better. The only reason you're talking about Caleb Williams is because there is an opportunity to upgrade a position. And it is the most important position for the Chicago Bears. And that's why so many people are on board with positioning and moving on from Justin Fields.
Speaking of that number 9 pick, how do you want the Bears to approach that selection?
Yeah, I think it really ultimately depends what they do with the first, right? If they do go Caleb Williams, I don't think none of the 3 wide receivers are going to be available at 9, right? Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, none of those guys are going to be available. They're too damn good. So at 9, you're left with, probably 4 guys that you think are equally as good, right? Whether it's Jared Verse, I'm not going to go into names, but whether it's, you're an O lineman, a D lineman, or you like maybe a wide receiver a little farther down. We were talking about Jaden Daniels earlier, Brian Thomas, one of his wide receivers, a stud. Maybe you like him. Maybe you like Troy Franklin from Oregon, somebody like that you can go down in the draft. So I don't mind at 9. I look at teams like Denver that need a quarterback.
Yes.
I look at the Raiders who want to leapfrog Denver for any pick that they might want. I look at, any team that's sitting there from, obviously not the Vikings, but anybody that's sitting behind the Bears that wants to come jump up. You want to get yourself a Michael Penix. You want to get yourself a J.J. McCarthy if he's not off the board yet. Papa, come. You want this offensive tackle that hasn't gone off the board yet either? Come get him too. Give me some picks. Move me down to 13, 15, whatever it is. I like Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon. Big center, big offensive line. Bears haven't addressed that in free agency yet. Wouldn't hate that. Again, getting a B-level wide receiver there. But again, you got draft capital. Me personally, it's either that or you're taking the best defensive end at that position.
Yeah.
I think that's what you do. If you're not going to remember, I have the benefit of knowing what the Bears have yet to do in free agency.
Yeah.
They've yet to adjust the defensive end position, and they've yet to adjust the center position. So I'm using that, to try to figure out what I want them to do. So if I'm at 9 and you've made a run on quarterbacks, wide receivers, and offensive linemen, I got the best defender available to me at 9. I might just, if I've done my due diligence, I might just go that route.
Yeah, I feel like Dallas Turner would be a good fit right there. Let me ask you this scenario. Are you sold on Braxton Jones to where if the top tackle's there at 9, you don't get a tackle for Caleb Williams or Justin Fields?
I am actually. Just because I then have to think about what do I do with Braxton Jones? Is he my swing tackle at that point? And then I'm not, I don't know. I don't like how that feels in terms of how I've used my draft capital. It's a bigger need, right? Where I'd rather have the best edge rusher and Braxton Jones instead of the best tackle, Braxton Jones as a backup, and a 4th round, 3rd round defensive end that I hope he's good, right? I know what I'm getting if I get one of these top dogs. They're gonna be somebody to match up on the other side of Montez Sweat. Like that's what I would want. With Braxton.
If it's a D end, are you wanting a Dallas Turner or a Jared Verse or the kid out of UCLA?
You know what? I trust Poles and their team to make the right decision. I like what they did with Darnell Wright last year. He's graded out well against some of the top offensive linemen like Paris Johnston that came out last year. So I like Darnell Wright. I think he's a good piece. Right tackle. You didn't have to put the pressure on him to be the left tackle. So he comes in. He's solid. So I like him there. So yeah, I think when it comes to edge, man, the 3 of them look great, right? I mean, it's like, so it's just a matter of who's going to be the best for this locker room, who's going to fit in well with the culture of the Chicago Bears. And again, you have your choice.
Yeah,
you're going to have your choice of the best quarterback and the best defender. That's crazy, in a draft. Yeah.
Are you guys sold on JJ McCarthy? Because he's getting a lot of hype, a lot of noise. Like someone's going to trade in the top 10 and get him.
I think it's tough because I think I look at the Michigan team. Similar to now, they didn't have the same star power as the Niners, but I was going to say I look at it similar to Brock Purdy's situation. Do I think I actually got to play Brock Purdy in college, but do I think Brock Purdy's a good quarterback? For sure. Like some of the reads that he was making, and then even in the playoffs, some of the runs, or throwing on a run, making acrobatic passes, all those different things. So that he definitely has talent. He's special in his own right. But that is someone that they drafted, last in the draft. That wasn't the quarterback that they went out there and got, in the first round. And so that's kind of how I view J.J. McCarthy. Like, I think he can make the throws. I think in pressure situations you saw in the Alabama game, he can step up. He can, deliver a throw. Had a great defense at Michigan. But I don't know. I just They scored a lot of points. Don't get me wrong, in college and then also in conference. But we could have a separate conversation on the Big Ten. But I just think Big Ten offenses are just trash, the majority of them. And so when you go into the game knowing that you always got the best defense on the field and that you just got to deliver a few passes a game, because it was Penn State. I think he threw. Like 3 times.
Didn't they run the ball like 40 times in a row?
And wild. And I get you do what's working, right?
Bill Belichick's done it. Right.
But I mean, if Caleb Williams, for example, if he was a quarterback for Michigan, like Harbaugh's throwing the ball. We're not. I don't care if the running game is working and we're getting 4 yards a pop, whatever it is. We're going to throw the ball because we have this weapon.
We're going to win 50-0.
Yeah, we have this quarterback behind us, and so. I just think you look at instances like that, and then I personally wouldn't take him that high in the first round. But obviously, I think he could come in and be a great backup to maybe like I don't know if the Atlanta has a first round pick, but like if it was a Kirk Cousins situation,
Atlanta picks 8th.
Oh well, yeah, he shouldn't go to Atlanta then.
No, he shouldn't.
But a situation like that where you have a starter. Where you can get a smart guy in the locker room, you can get a winner in the locker room. Seems professional, and I think he'll go in there. I don't think he'll compete for the starting job right away, but in that year or two, I think he would be ready. But then again, Ritter went pretty high, so I think McCarthy's better than Ritter. So that's kind of where I see him at, though.
I could see him being like a Ryan Tannehill type, where he gets in the league, has some sort of like resurrection where he figures things out a little bit later. But a lot of people are high on JJ McCarthy, right? 5-star recruit, wasn't asked to do much because, as you mentioned, the team was doing well. So I think a lot of people are curious, like, can you throw the ball 25 times? And what does that accuracy look like? What does that completion percentage look like? So I think a lot of people are going to be intrigued by that. But it's the NFL, man. We saw with Zach Wilson. You get blinded by blonde hair, blue eyes, and the jawline, and then they'll be like, bro, captain of the football team, we got to get this guy. Right, exactly. And so we've seen it. I'm not saying that JJ McCarthy isn't going to be that. I'm not a person to say that, but it'll be interesting to see where he goes, how high he goes in the first round.
My thing with McCarthy is they had such a good team, probably one of the best college coaches, and then their 2 running backs were both really good, and their schedule this year, with the exception of I think they played Ohio State at the end of the season, their schedule was pretty bad. They only played Penn State and Ohio State. Penn State was.
Well, that's just a Big Ten schedule.
Big Ten, yeah.
That's just a Big. Well, now it's better now because you got USC, Oregon, UCLA coming over. But the Big Ten it's very top heavy. But outside of those tough 2 games that they play a year, I mean,
East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, Minnesota, Michigan State was terrible this year.
Right.
It's not a great schedule.
And then seeing some of those games, you're talking about the offenses of the Big Ten, right? You could talk about like the Iowa game, like where the over/under is always like at 36 points because nobody's putting up anything on the offensive side.
I love taking those games.
Yeah,
because that's just a blind under.
Blind
I don't
under.
care
It doesn't
who they
matter.
playing. It's a blind
Iowa
under. Yeah.
How could he be that bad at like?
And they got the quarterback. Didn't they get the McNamara?
He got hurt.
McNamara.
He got hurt.
He ended up getting
He got hurt.
Their
Yeah.
2 quarterbacks got
Damn.
hurt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Tough situation. But they always have a tight. I don't know who their tight end is, but on the radar.
Their best player.
Whoever he is.
Whoever he is, he's on the radar. That's one thing about Iowa. Yeah. I don't know who's throwing the ball. And they always have some good linemen too. Yeah. So
the corn guys out there.
Their best player was the white corner this year, who's maybe going to be a first-round pick.
Yeah, facts.
Crazy.
What do you? Yeah.
He's going to play on the NFL black versus white team. He's going to be their cornerback instead of Christian McCaffrey. What they said, did you see that? He goes, all right, on defense, playing cornerback, Christian McCaffrey, got to go both ways. That was great. But they got a good team. Big Ten, obviously, they're going to get those automatic bids in the brand new college football playoff championship seeding. So, it's still a major conference. What do you think about seeing those Pac-12 teams coming over?
I think it sucks for the rest of the teams that didn't find a conference. That piece sucks. And I think it also sucks. Football is going to be great because I think at the end of the day, football should go to NFC, AFC. I think because I think that playoff system will be a lot better. Like, we love NFL playoffs, whereas college football playoffs, it was only 4 teams. The bowl games don't really matter. You don't even get a chance for, like, the Chiefs. They weren't. Were they? I don't even think they were. They won top 4 seeds overall. So we wouldn't even gotten to see the Chiefs make it to make the run that they made. And so I think bringing them over is like an early start, maybe to that 2 conference type thing, that big power conference that people were talking about. And I think it's going to be competitive. I think we were just talking about the schedule, and I think you're adding great programs to the schedule, not only for football, for basketball, even for sports like gymnastics, because UCLA, USC, all those Pac-12 teams have good teams out there, and softball too. So I think the entire conference overall will benefit, but I think some of those traveling days for those smaller sports, now that's going to be something to wrap your head around, because that'll be crazy on college kids to. I think they were talking about playing a couple games out there so that you don't have to go back and forth.
Right.
But I think outside of that, the traveling and all the logistics, I think it'll be great for college football and college sports, because you got to innovate. And I like what the SEC did. Big 12 obviously made some adjustments as well. So I think it's great. It's going to change Big 10 in a way that you're going to bring more speed to the conference. But you're also going to force USC, UCLA to get bigger up front. So I think it'll be an adjustment period. So I think like a team like USC, UCLA may come in here and beat like a Rutgers or a Minnesota or teams like that, but may struggle against an Iowa. Where where it's like those boys are, tough up front, and they're going to force you to have to tackle, force you to play 9 people in the box. And I think so once the recruiting gets figured out on both sides, then I think you got a real dynamic conference, and it'll be like a like a elevated ACC type of thing where you have a mixture of big and fast skill position, and then it'll just, I think it'll take off from there.
It's going to be fun to watch next year. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm excited about the expanded playoffs too.
Oh,
What's the rule with ND because they're not in a conference?
So unless they're the number one seed, they'll always be, I think it was like unless they're the number one seed, there'll always be 5. Because the top 4 seeds will be conference champions. And so I don't even know if they can be number 1. Yeah, they can definitely be number 1. But so it was like they're number 1 or 5 and behind. And some people were saying it's bad because I think it's bad, but because they don't have a conference championship, they don't get that first week bye. So they have to play in that first game.
And they'll get home field advantage too, right? They'll
be home. But then you have the potential of playing. Because if you were the 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 or 4, you're playing like the winner of 5 and 8 or whatever in that case may be, and then you'll have to play the 1 seed if you're a 2 seed if you're in that position. But that's only. I mean, at the end of the day, like there's no perfect scenario. It was either force Notre Dame into a conference,
right? And they were,
and then it's even, or you find a way to make them a part of it. And the athletic director in the school agreed on the rules, so. I mean, we'll see. At the end of the day, like, I don't know if they. I think we should go undefeated this year, but I not even think we better go undefeated this year.
Who's your college team, Gabe?
I don't have a college team.
No?
Nah,
we'll take you at Notre Dame.
We're recruiting.
Nah,
we'll take you at Notre Dame.
You know what it is? Notre Dame fans, sometimes they could rub you the wrong way, you know what I'm saying? But I have been to Notre Dame Stadium. I caught a Notre Dame versus USC game. Dad took me out there.
Who was so it was a while ago.
It was a while ago.
Who, remember quarterback at all?
Not at all. Okay. I just remember being overwhelmed by the size of the stadium.
Yeah.
And it was just so big. And then the tailgating, beforehand was just incredible as well. So, but no, when it comes to college football, again, there's just so many teams in college football. I love watching college football because of the excitement, the scoring, and I always know the top 100 players, so I can always follow them when I'm watching a particular team. But in terms of like being an actual fan, I just like you mentioned at the top of the show, is like from Chicago we have all the major sports teams, so my time is just so dedicated to all of them. To then divest it a little bit more to then give it to somebody else is just like it's overwhelming, especially when no team in Chicago is like really. Grabbing you and saying, "Hey, come watch us." You know what I'm saying? Notre Dame is that because they're on TV, but nobody here like in the States. Like I wish Illinois was good.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I wish Northwestern had a decent team. You know what I mean? Things like that. Because then I'd probably be able to get behind it a little more. So and then my college didn't have a football team. I went to UIC. So
true.
Okay. What teams in the city are you most passionate about?
Yeah,
like, rank them from 1 to 4. 1
so
to 5.
I'm most passionate about the Bulls. Like. I played basketball. I play basketball still. I played basketball yesterday. Him and I were always talking about this room right here. Like I love basketball, so I love the Bulls. That'll be my number 1. Bears will be second. White Sox will be third. And then I'm not a Cubs fan, but I don't mind watching them. I'm not a Cubs hater. You know what I'm saying? And the Blackhawks, whatever they're good, I follow.
What's about to happen to the White Sox, man? They were talking about moving to Nashville potentially. Then they were talking about building a stadium on Roosevelt over there. Like. What's going on with them?
Yeah, I think that it's all just leveraging, right? Like if you own the franchise that was the laughingstock of the league, I always like to look at things from my degree's in economics, right? So I'm always looking at it from a business side. I try to put myself in the shoes of these investors, like or the executives like Ryan Poles, in this case Jerry Reinsdorf. And if I think my team's the laughingstock of the league, and more specifically the laughingstock of the city. Right, like I can't even get no love in my own city. Like the people that love me are just diehards. It's not no new people, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how can I flip this narrative? How can I change this? All right, well, there's a piece of land on Roosevelt and Canal that's open, or Clark, that's open, and South Loop, busing, Roosevelt and Canal, everything that's going on over there, all the development. Okay, man, maybe I can get a head start on that, similar to what he did to the United Center, right? He put that in the west of the West Loop, and now the West Loop is popping, and now his land is 10x. You know what I'm saying? So you do that at Roosevelt Canal, you be a part of that wave, and now you become a bit sexier to the city, right? And we understand that here in Chicago, it is extremely segregated. People do not like to go south of Roosevelt, you know what I'm saying, if they live north of it, you know what I'm saying? So it's like now you make it a little bit more palatable to get to. You can catch that red line, get off on Roosevelt, don't have to get off on an exit with a number on it, you know what I'm saying? And now people might like you a little bit more. So again, if I am the laughingstock and I find a way to become more palatable to the new audience, and you're already cooler, right? Like the White Sox do cooler things, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, so if you can just put that in a new location, then yeah, that could propel your organization to a new era. And so I'm with it. I like it. I'm here for it. I understand the leaving the South Side and something being left there, but I also work for the Chicago Fire. I'm their in-game host, and I'm like, give it to the Chicago Fire. They'd love to do that, not pay the rent on Soldier Field, and really thrive off on 35th because their fan base, it is Latino, it is Chicago, it is who we are, and so that would be a good idea. So I think overall, I like the move, but the Sox are going to Sox.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality.
I actually like that Chicago Fire idea. I didn't even think about that. Because they just moved from SeatGeek to Soldier Field recently,
That's a couple years ago, A couple years ago, they did that. And they're making all the right moves. Joe Mansueto, the owner, he's a visionary. David Baldwin, the president, he's just a really smart guy. And so, I'm sure if the opportunity presented itself, I don't know. They wanted to go to Soldier Field to get more eyes on the team, back on the team, right? Yeah. So if you go to Comiskey, that's a way to make a splash, right? And tell people, hey, we're here, especially if you reinvest in the community. Really make that an area for people to kick it in an entertainment district like they've been wanting it to do.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
That's the only problem with the Sox, I think, over there. Like, there's not much to do outside of, there's that one hot dog stand, there's the one restaurant that's in the stadium itself.
But, Elliot, who's going to do it?
Hot dog stand? Huh? That's all they got is a hot dog stand.
Like, they got other shit, but, they haven't built it's a bit different because the Cubs are in a different area. Right. But the Cubs got new ownership and they built hotels and little bars and restaurants all across the area. But
right, but you can't tailgate at Wrigley, right? You can't park anywhere and tailgate like you can at a football game, right? You can do that at Sox Park. They got these big ass parking lots. This is where you come tailgate because they know there's no bars anywhere, right? So there's nothing to keep you there afterwards. And I think that's the biggest thing that's missing. But again, even if they built it, who's gonna kick it? Who's gonna kick it over there? Who's gonna stay on 35th and Shields and spend their night there and then catch an Uber back to the crib? It's gonna be a tough sell.
That's real.
You know what I mean? You can go to Maria's. Shout out Maria's one time. You can go to Maria's, which is amazing. But that's it. You got that in a couple more spots. You might go over back by Pilsen, but you're not back by 35th and Shields, which is the biggest issue. So
back to the Bears really quick. The only splash signing that they've made so far is DeAndre Swift on that 3-year deal. What's your thoughts on
Love
that?
It.
You liked it?
Absolutely. Love it. You saw what Saquon went for, Josh Jacobs went for. DeAndre Swift, that's two things that stood out to me actually a couple of things that stood out. 4 fumbles lost and 539 carries. That's amazing. 11 drops on 247 targets. For a running back, that's amazing. When his starting yardage, if you look, it's minus 400, meaning that everything is behind the line of scrimmage, all his passes, but he's turning them into something. So those 2 things stood out. 2 other things that were really highlights for me, he split carries his first 3 years in Detroit, so he's fresh. It's not like he was a workhorse in Detroit. He split carries and he was amazing. And then he had a chip on the shoulder, went to Philadelphia and had the best year of his career. He's 25 years old, and he's going to have a chip on the shoulder for the Chicago Bears. He split carries in Detroit. Philadelphia moved on from him. Now he's playing for the Bears, got the bag, and he's like, well, you guys watch this.
Yeah.
I got a good team over here. They're doing something. I really feel good about that move because I wasn't confident in Khalil Herbert or Roschon Johnson.
I feel the exact same way. I like Khalil Herbert. Cool dude. He's been through here before.
Yeah.
But he was best when David Montgomery was that number 1 running back, and he could just compliment him. So I think between those two and Roschon Johnson, I like how the backfield looks a lot more than it did 48 hours ago.
Yeah, Deontay Foreman, I really thought he was going to be the starting running back last year. They moved on from him and tried to give the keys to Khalil. And then, he got hurt. Unfortunately, couldn't bounce back the same way. So, again, I think it was a great upgrade at the running back position.
Does Josh Jacobs of the Packers scare you at all?
Nah. And I like Josh Jacobs. I think the Packers scare me, right? Not just Josh Jacobs. I think their entire team. I think how they run their organization, I think they do a really good job up there. Spend money when they need to, move on from certain things when they have to. Their coach is good. So, they're going to be a tough team for the next couple of years. And I think that they understood that they were very close to beating the 49ers.
Yeah, they were.
At least this past, postseason. And so adding a couple things like Josh Jacobs, I think they added somebody else as well. Oh, Xavier McKinney from the Giants. Big contract, great safety. So they brought in some key components to really just upgrade their squad. And then the assumption is that, Jordan Love continues to build that rapport with those young receivers, and that, that chemistry continues to build. Continuity, like AK would say, lives there. And again, that's why I said that's the whole team. I hate them, all of them, and what they do.
They're so good.
They got a Chicago guy, Jaden Reed.
Jaden Reed is from Naperville. I wish the Bears could have drafted him. He was like a 5th-round selection. He was bald this year.
Yeah, he went crazy. No, he was better than 5th round, though.
It was a mid-round pick, I want to say. Let's look.
He's from Chicago? Damn.
Yeah, he went to that same high school that Sean Payton went to. Oh, yeah, he was a 2nd-round pick. You're right. Way higher than I thought.
Was one of the first guys they draft, because they never really drafted. Oh, Watkins. Watkins might have been the.
Or Watson.
Yeah. Did they draft him pretty early? Because I remember it was like a thing. Patriots, Packers didn't draft.
Yeah, it was second round. You're talking about Christian Watson, right?
Yeah.
Second round for him. Then they had Romeo Doubs, and then, or was Christian Watson first round? End of the first round.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, end of the first round.
Yeah.
Because I remember when the Bears got Chase Claypool, I did like this exercise where I went and looked at, all the wide receivers that were drafted in the second round for the last like 5 years. And I was like, it's not like it was anybody that really stood out. But I remember somebody said Christian Watson. I thought it was Christian Watson. But was it first round?
34th overall. So barely
just
second round.
Right on the thing. Okay, yeah, I knew it was high up there. But yeah, I mean, they did a good job, man. They did a really good job with that wide receiver room and bringing in some young guys.
I had such high hopes for Chase Claypool in Chicago. Like, it was tough to trade that pick for him. That pick ended up becoming Joey Porter Jr., who balled for the Steelers this year.
Yeah, I think it was the right move in the moment. One, you didn't want him to go to the Packers.
Yeah.
And two, you really genuinely, you didn't have DJ Moore. So you had no one for Justin. You couldn't evaluate Justin Fields properly because you had no one for him to throw to, and you assumed this would then pan out.
Yeah.
What you didn't anticipate was, some people feel themselves a lot. And you definitely saw it in his interviews, in his play, in his sideline antics. And yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about your former teammate like that. We can move on.
It's all good.
I don't have any comments.
Yeah.
I've had teammates that changed on me too. Don't worry about it.
Nah, he's been on the podcast a couple of times, so no, we definitely love him. We got to get I'm gonna definitely reach out to Swift when they get in for OTAs. We got to get him on.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be dope.
Because he played in Detroit with some of my friends, and he's coming back to the same division, so that'll be a familiar division for him. But I also want to talk about the division in general. I mean, it's picking up to where I would say it used to just be Packers. Like, Packers owned it. It was, the whole Aaron Rodgers, antics. What was it? He's like, I own you or something.
Right.
Yeah. But now the division, like two scary teams, potential third, I think the Bears, and then, Vikings. I think if they find the quarterback situation, they're right there as well. So talk about just the division in general and just where you see or how hard it is going to be for the Bears to like crack that, 1 or 2 spot.
I think initially, Shaun, it's a testament to the NFL and how well they've built the organization and the structure of teams and the ability to bounce back. Even though they were once a bottom dweller, and I think you see that with the NFC North, the Lions climbing their way up, the Bears, as you mentioned, getting better every year, Packers seemingly finding a way to get talent year in and year out. And then the Vikings, they had Kirk Cousins for a while, and it'll be interesting to see how they address that quarterback position. But the conference as a whole, I think it is built on grit. It is built on that and people understand like you need to. The bar was set with Aaron Rodgers and has been, right. Or before that, obviously Brett Favre and such. But in our era, it's Aaron Rodgers. So every team in that division understands you cannot even get out of this division unless you're that good. And so I think every team has tried to build themselves to be that a good overall team, and they are one of the best conferences in the NFL next season. They will be one of the best conferences in the NFL, and it's going to be difficult for any team to get out of that division because, as simple as it is to say that the Detroit Lions could be the clear and obvious favorite, it's the NFL, right? You mess around, lose 2 games, split some series with a couple of your division rivals, and all of a sudden you're 9-8. And so is everybody else, and you're trying to figure out who got the best conference record, to try to find some tiebreakers. So it's going to be tough. So it could be a division where everybody wins 11. It could be a division where everybody wins 8, but it's still going to be a difficult division, regardless of the win totals.
How did you even get started in radio to begin with?
So I was in a singing group, and we were traveling the country, doing our stuff, and then we ended up breaking up. And at that point, it was like, I was still writing for people, but the love to do that just kind of like my heart got broke right there. And then it was like, all right, what am I going to do for a living? I got to do this. And I worked in finance for a while. I worked at like H&R Block. Like I said, my degree's in econ. So I did that for a minute. And then ultimately I was just like, you got to have blind optimism in certain moments in your life. And I did as well. And I was like, I could do this radio thing, just like most people feel. And so I didn't even go to school for radio, but I got an internship at B96. I was actually, they had like a radio station softball league, and my guy was like the webmaster at B96 a long time ago. And, you know, I was a Puerto Rican kid, play baseball. He was like, yo, we need a center fielder. And at the time I was working in finance. So I was doing music and working in finance, but I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll play. So I'm playing center field, batting third, fucking everybody up. And that's how I met guys like Lawrence Holmes from the Score, you know, Jason Goff from the Bulls. Like I would see these people, but I didn't work in radio yet, you know? And so Eddie and Jobo, these two legendary morning show hosts here on B96 in Chicago, they've since moved on. After I had been on the team for a couple of years, Eddie finally got on the squad. And then him and I got really cool. And then he was like, I play basketball, whatever. And then I was like, I play ball. So him and I started playing ball together. And then that's when Derrick Rose got drafted. And then when I was graduating, I was like, I just hit him up. I was like, yo, should I get an internship or should I apply for a job? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I was working at the radio station at UIC. Just had my little show over there. And he's like, you do radio? I've been knowing you for 3 years. You haven't mentioned this to me. And I'm like, I'm not going to be in your fucking ear like, hey, let me get that shit. You know what I'm saying? Right. So 3 years later, so that was on a Wednesday. We were playing ball. I told him that shit. That Monday, I was Eddie and Jobo's first intern in 7 years. That was back in 2008. I have not left that station since. I've been on B96 and I made that jump from intern to morning show producer, to third mic, to host with Gabe and Nina, to now, because I still love it and I still make money off my endorsements. I still work there on the weekends. But the Score, they're sister stations. It's like, you know, if this is the Score, B96 is that room over there. It's the same thing. So I know the bosses. I was on Fox doing the Bears a lot, coverage for like 5 years. They knew I did sports. And so you can't be an older man doing pop radio. And I understand that. And one of the best lessons that Eddie taught me when I first started working in radio, he said, have an exit strategy. That's the first thing he taught me. And so I was always thinking about sports and how I can live in this world of Chicago, you know, post pop radio. And it happened to happen at 670 The Score and Fox. And I think I'm very fortunate because when you're looking at this radio game and TV game for that matter, don't nobody really work where they live. It's a luxury, you know, and I know that because I've been in studios with every radio personality I've worked with, and they don't care I'm saying this. Every radio personality I worked with that does not live in Chicago has cried in that room. Cried. Because we'll come back from a vacation or a weekend and I'll be kicking it with my mom, my brother, my cousins. I went to a family party, a family reunion, and they were like, I was at the crib doing nothing because that's the nature of the beast. And so I'm very fortunate to live here and very fortunate to have been able to have pivoted to sports and been able to live that space. But, you know, people always ask me, how you know so much sports? I'm like, what the fuck? I grew up in Chicago. What do you mean? This is what we do. We watch the Bears. We watch the Bulls. I know just as much as you do. I just, you know, I know how to study it a little bit more and deliver it to you a little bit better, but it's the same shit like everybody else. So, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I also want to ask, like, where do you start? Like, when you get on a topic, it could be draft, it could be, you know, preseason Bears or anything like that. Just being in the sports space and having a show, the research is, I think, the toughest part. We were talking about yesterday, he has his own podcast as well, and we were talking about we want to get to that point to where we can just we can get to the desk and everything is laid out in front of us, like a Colin Cowherd type setup or something where producers, you know, do all the research and everything. And you still do your own as well, but you can get to the desk and everything is set up. Just for like information and just insight, where do you usually start? Like when you dive in on a topic? Yeah, I think
one of the best advice I ever got when it comes to radio and like delivering a topic, right, is starting at the finish line, right? I think that's and then you could take that and run with that in any aspect, right? So when you're talking about wanting to be, you know, having people here and producing that, and so I think you got to start with, okay, well, I have to have my format of my show. You know what I mean? I have to do all of that stuff. So I think, you know, that's what you're asking, right? I want to make sure I'm answering your question properly. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if you were talking about where I go look for my information or how do I start? Yeah. So I think when, like, if for example, if it's the draft, like if I was starting this podcast right now, the first thing I would say would be something wild about Caleb Williams and Justin Fields to start the whole thing and let everybody know that's what we on right now, right? So if we're talking draft and everything like that, it's like Gabe does, what's up? You know, it's motherfucking Varsity House here. Check this out. We got our guest, Gabe Ramirez, in the building. He does not think the Bears should take Caleb Williams or rock with Justin Fields. What's his alternative? We're going to get to that in a second. You know, so now you've laid the groundwork for what this is going to be, and now you can get into whatever, you know, but I think the difficulty with something like this where it's, you know, an hour and a half straight, an hour, 2 hours straight, there's no stopping point, right? Where on the radio, I got commercial breaks. So I know this is a segment, right? I know it's a 15-minute finite amount of time. That's a segment, you know, and this is very open format, right? But you should still, what I would do if I were you, right? You should still do it like you would write a book report where you got that big ass circle in the middle and then you got little lines on the side. right?
Yeah.
And you got your little things right up here, and now that's your show, right? And you could refine that, but for you in this, like that's what I would do, because now I could cross this one off. I already touched that, and now I'm waiting for the conversation to get to
The next one.
that one over there. Boom, now I crossed that off. Boom, and if I get off track, I know how to circle it back and segue back to number 3 that I had here, and that's how I would, what I'm saying, if I were you, for sure.
That's fire.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
This is Varsity House Podcast. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Co-host Elliot Montanez, special guest Gabe Ramirez.
Yes, sir.
I'm Shaun Crawford, your host. Amazing episode talking Bears, talking Chicago sports, but also talking a little bit of college football, and we'll see where free agency takes us next. But appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you go like, subscribe, comment to Varsity House Podcast on all our channels. See you next time.